Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Mike Russo, Anthony LaPanta coming to you the night after the Wild's 5-1 win over the Colorado Avalanche, cut the series deficit to 2-1, heading to a very pivotal game 4 on Monday night. And Anthony, first of all, Kevin Gorg out there at the team party on the streets the other day in his Jake Middleton uniform. It looked like a lot of fun. I don't know if you went out there at all. But, man, he is built for a pep rally, that's for sure.
I did not go out there. Jake Middleton, does that mean he was tarps off for this thing?
No, he was wearing a Middleton sweater, so I don't know if it was if he bought it, if it was given to him by Midzi, if it was given to him by the Wild. But it
well, you and I both know Kevin
like
Gorg well enough to know he didn't buy it.
Yeah, good point. Might have been gifted to him, but I did find it. I mean, you know, he is like you gotta hand to Gorg. Like he's like he just gets into that type of stuff. He's such a teddy bear to begin with, and it looked like he had a blast out there, and it looked like an absolute just party outside throughout the game as well.
Yeah, I love the guy, and he is built for that. That's right up his alley. He can just start talking and never stop, and the people seem to love it. But that is one of his great roles, personalities. The fans love him, and we love him on our broadcast for sure. But the street looked like it was packed. A couple of the photos I saw, and what a great atmosphere. I thought from the start last night. And maybe it was an 8 o'clock Saturday night start that contributed to it. Maybe it's a second round series. Maybe it's the fact that it was the Avalanche. There were a lot of different reasons why perhaps it was electric last night, but it sure was from the start. And Minnesota fed off it. And I thought last night there were a couple things that really had to happen for the game to go the way it wound up going. Was one, there had to be great atmosphere in the building, and there was. There wasn't an angst and a nervousness. So, it's 0-2, where it was, we've seen nights like that in the past from the fans here in Minnesota, where they've started the game perhaps like waiting for the next shoe to drop kind of feel. That wasn't that last night. Then the Wild got a great start from each line. Kaprizov had a great chance on his first shift. The Foligno brothers drove a couple guys through the wall on their first shift. And then Wally made the first save. And all of those things, it was almost like it just let everybody okay, this is going to be different. This is going to be different than games 1 and 2. This is the way the Wild need to play. It's the way they played all series against Dallas. And it just set the tone for what ended up being a great night in St. Paul. And the building never quieted. They were roaring all night.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. It was interesting because the Wild came out of the gates flying. They were physical. But then you're right. They didn't score. And then Parker Kelly gets the breakaway. And for that brief second, you kind of felt the air drop in the arena. Like, oh my God, are they really going to go down 1-0 here after such a great start? He makes that save, and then you could just feel it the rest of the game. And the Wild, look, they cooperated. They came out, played a tremendous game. They just kept their foot on the gas. And what I loved the most about the game, Anthony, from Minnesota's perspective, is the third period. There was no sit back. They really took it to them. Had some unbelievably good sustained shifts in the offensive zone.
Yeah, they did. And let's go back to the first period for a moment, because you're exactly right. There were some points there where the start was great, but they didn't get rewarded for it. And yet then the deflating goal didn't happen. And not only did Ballstead make that save, but remember, they had to get their first penalty kill when it was still 0-0. And this is a kill that for 3 days now, all of those guys had to be listening to how bad the penalty kill was. It's been a disaster. It's been Colorado's power play, which was terrible all year. Even they're lighting us up. And so that was in the back of their minds, and it was a point of emphasis. So they got the big kill, and then they cashed in on the power play. And albeit it was a 4-on-3, not a traditional power play, but they had also been hearing about, well, what's wrong with the Wild's power play? The special teams have been terrible. And yet here, to set the tone in this game, they not only got the kill, they got the power play goal to separate it and make it 2-0, and then had to get another kill at the end of the period where you felt like there was a chance here. If Colorado gets a power play goal there and escapes the period down only one in a period that had gone about as well as it could go for Minnesota, that is a very different feel. And Wally had to make a big stop on that kill. In fact, a couple of them. So there were a lot of things there in the first period that were somewhat typical of the way the Wild played all season. That was what separated them this year from other Wild clubs, is that they withstood some of that kind of stuff. And then you fast forward to the third period. I think you're right. The start of the third period was great, but then late, Colorado really pushed, and that's where Wallstedt might have been as good as he was all night, was the final 10 minutes or so when Colorado was really, for the first time, had Minnesota under siege.
Yeah, he does the cartwheel at the end, I think, to show his just finally let some release out, not piss off Connor McGahey that he, to have a big fist bump. This time he just did a cartwheel.
Acted like he'd won the cup when he is not.
Yeah. But to your point on the penalty kill goal or the penalty kills, you're so right in the fact also, like, they gave up a goal for at least one goal for the 9th straight playoff game. But it always is when it happens. And it's 0-0 and 2-0 in the first period, and they get the kills on both of them. And then, they score the power play goal at 3-0, but then they respond right away. So a lot of times it's also situational. But the other thing that you said there that's big, and not to, rip on Wallstedt or Gustafsson here, but it saves too. The Wild, as we talked about the last podcast, had a 62.5% save percentage on the penalty kill compared to going into last night, 90.5 for Colorado. Sometimes the old cliche is your goaltender has to be your best penalty killer. And Wallstedt certainly was yesterday. He had 4 saves in the first period. And obviously there's nothing he could do on the McKinnon goal. He has, Damon Hunt put Landeskog on top of him. So, he came up big. He rebounded from a disappointing game one. The reset the Wild coaches gave him absolutely wound up working, and he took a breath, and there you go. I mean, he was as good as it gets last night.
He was good, and I had kind of dug into the numbers a little bit on the Wild's kill a little deeper going into last night's game, and it's one of the many spots where it's strange when we're not doing the broadcasts. My analytic study isn't quite as thorough as it would be for a game that I was, I'm building graphics for those games. So you're really kind of digging into it from all angles, where now in the first 2 games of this series, a little bit of research, I'd say. It's not really research, but a little bit of digging into things, but mostly just watching the game as more than a casual observer, but just watching it. And it's all mostly just eye test stuff that then I'll go back and look. And I wonder if that was accurate. But before this game, I spent a little time. I had an hour before puck drop last night, so I was digging into it. And yes, the save percentage and the high danger save percentage was 15th out of the 16 teams in the playoffs. But so were the high danger chances against per 2 minutes, the expected goals against for 2 minutes. I mean, it's been, the kill just frankly hadn't been good enough. And so, yes, last night they do give up a power play goal, but it didn't feel the same. And so some of the numbers are probably going to end up being similar, but it was a totally different feel. And the timeliness of the kills was important. And, now it's got them back in the series. It still is something that has to be cleaned up. I mean, that there are going to be some games here in this series, I predict, where the Wild are going to have to be perfect on the kill if they're going to advance and catch this Colorado club, which would end up being 4 wins in 5 games to advance after being down 2-0. But I think what's interesting, we had the graphic a few times during the year, that if you look at the Wild over the last 2 seasons, when they've been perfect on the penalty kill, they have the best record in the NHL in those games over the last 2 years. And this year had, I think, the 3rd most games in the league where they were perfect on the kill over the course of the year, which is interesting because of how bad the kill was early. They still finished, I think, 12th on the kill for the season. But down the stretch, they were perfect. I want to say it was like 17 of their last 22 or something like that. It was really a remarkable number. And, that was one of the reasons why this team was among the league's elite all year.
You've heard me talk about the Onyx Hunt app on here for years. Well, make sure you download the Onyx Fish app as well, because before you even pull the boat out of the garage, You could sort lakes by species, trophy potential, and keeper potential, so you're not just guessing and you're going out with a plan. You could also use the Onyx Fish app to filter walleye, bass, panfish, whatever you're chasing, and see species abundance and size data so you actually know what's in the lake before you launch. Everything you need to get there and get on fish is all in one app. Boat ramps, lake access points, public versus private land, points of interest like bait shops and camping. It's all built into the app. No more scrambling around 3 different apps or outdated reports. Onyx Fish gives you the proven fishing area data and local insights that used to take years to learn. So you could do a decade of knowledge all in about 10 minutes. So download Onyx Fish on the App Store or visit onyxmaps.com/fish. Spring fishing is here. Go find a lake you've been driving past for years and finally find out if it's worth the launch.
Hi, this is Anthony LaPanta. I wanted to introduce you to a product a lot of my friends have been using lately called Lucy. Lucy is a premium tobacco-free nicotine pouch that comes in a variety of strengths and flavors, so there's an option for just about everyone. What makes it stand out is the flavor experience, especially with Lucy Breakers, which have a built-in flavor capsule you crack for an instant extra burst. That's what makes Lucy different. It's the only pouch delivering long-lasting, on-demand flavor, giving you a unique experience every time. Get 20% off your first order at lucy.com/worstseats with a promo code. And if you don't want to wait, check out the store locator to find a Lucy near you and grab it today. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every customer is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Yeah, and now it's crazy 9 in a row where they've
9
given
in a
up the
row.
goal.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. But conversely, their power play came through last night, a huge 4-on-3 goal. What a play by Brock Faber. Great job by John Hines to get McCarron out there for the D-zone draw. McCarron wins the draw, goes right to the bench for Boldy, and they come up the ice on a 4-on-4. And Brock Faber, you and I talked about it all year long, how bizarre it is that sometimes Brock is just disrespected league-wide. In the way that people talk about him and his talent level. He's such a gifted player, and it starts with his skating. And you give him a 4-on-4 with him having the puck on his eyes on his stick, and he is as dangerous as anybody. He sucks 2 guys into
other than
him.
maybe 43.
Yeah, other than 43. But he sucks 2 guys right to him, and then there Kirill's got the open lane, go right to the net. Beautiful goal by Kirill. And then the best parts of 4-on-4. It's funny because we talked last pod about how we don't. I remember back in the day, Mike Yeo used to bemoan 4-on-4s because that seems to be the playoffs. They always take 2 guys. But that back then they didn't have the horses to handle that. Now they do. And so when Hartman and Parker Kelly went off for the 4-on-4, you just kind of sense that this would open up the ice in a good way for Minnesota. They score right away. And then the best parts of 4-on-4 is that then you draw the penalty. You're getting a 4-on-3. And Quinn Hughes, so smart to recognize that Scott Wedgwood doesn't have his stick there. And he creates some lane for himself, a screen, and goes right at the stick side and scores the huge goal to make it 2-0.
Yeah, I thought Hughes was really good last night, night long, and Faber was great too. And in fact, I was trying to pick the 3 stars of the game last night, and I was like, there's 6 guys that were all legitimate candidates, and Faber to me was terrific. I thought Jared Spurgeon had a quietly great night. I thought he was really good last night, and spent some time with a couple different D partners over the course of the night. I know the plan was, and he played most of his minutes with Hunt, but he was also on the ice with some other guys at different times just because of situations. But I thought he was great, and then the way Wallstead played down the stretch, I was like, well, how do you not put him in the top 3? So there were a lot of candidates last night for Minnesota, but I think your point about 4-on-4 is great because when the Wild traded for Hughes, it solidified this. And I think it was, we talked a lot about it from the defensive perspective and said, look at now the big 3 in the Central with Dallas having Heiskanen, Colorado having Makar, and now Minnesota having Hughes. But it's also the star power up front that all these teams have that now Minnesota matches that. When McKinnon and Makar and Natchez are on the ice, well, okay, the Wild counter with Kaprizov, Boldy, Hughes, and Faber. I mean, it's just as good. When Dallas would go to their big guns with, think early in the season, I remember there was a 5-on or a 6-on-5 for Dallas late in the game when they pulled the goaltender, and you looked out and it was like, holy cow, they've got Robertson, they've got Hintz, they've got They've got Johnston, they've got Heiskanen. Okay, well, on the other side, you've got Boldy, you've got Faber, you've got Kaprizov, you've got Eriksson Ek. I mean, it's star power that Minnesota can now match, and that was different in the Mike Yeo era. Now, let's go. Let's let her rip 4-on-4, because I defy you to find somebody who uses 4-on-4 ice better than Quinn Hughes. And now Faber with him. So yeah, it's fun to watch in those kind of settings. And one of the things that I noticed last night, and again, you just get to watch the game a little differently when you're not calling the play-by-play, is I think these two coaches are underrated with the little subtle ways they use their personnel. And Hines, you mentioned the McCarron thing. He did that the very first shift of the game. I don't know if you remember the first shift for the Boldy and Johansson line. They got an offensive zone faceoff after an ice. And so he didn't start Urov with him. He started McCarron to win the draw and try and give those guys a chance in the offensive zone. And Bednar does the same thing, where all of a sudden you'll look and, it was an offensive zone faceoff. So suddenly Landeskog was on the ice with McKinnon and Natchez, or the faceoff was on this side, so Kadri got a shift with them. Just little subtle ways that they get their stars on the ice in the right spots just a couple extra times a night.
Yeah, offensive zone starts are huge. Defensive zone starts are huge. And look, I mean, the reality is the Wild have had some coaches in the past that didn't pay attention to that enough, and it wound up burning them. I know I talked to a GM of the Wild the other day that we were talking about some of the playoffs where that was not done, and John Hines does that really, really well, Anthony. The only thing I didn't love about the last night is, you're up 3 minute left. I didn't think there was any reason to, after that one shift where they called timeout, to throw Kaprizov and Boldy out there. The way that things are going with Ek and Brodin, I just don't. Why risk an injury there, a blocked shot?
You're talking about when there was the extra attacker when it was 4-1?
Yeah. Like, I didn't mind the first one where, Kirill missed it a couple times, but I just didn't. The last shift, you're up 3. Why do it? You got their guns that they're going to be blasting pucks away. That's where, to me, you throw out the Folignos, the McCarrons, the Hartmans, players like that. I just didn't think there was any risk to throw Kaprizov or Boldy out there, but Boldy gets his 4th empty net goal of the playoffs. So there you go.
Yeah, and those are the spots that, and John's been pretty quick to say, look, those guys aren't out there to score an empty netter, but the fact that they have the ability to, the best chance to score is why he throws them out in those spots. And to have skilled players where they get a chance with the puck on their stick to get it out of the zone and make a play. But yeah, I agree with you where I'm sure John was thinking, look, the last thing I want is to go with anybody lesser, let them get one, and all of a sudden put any anxiety either on my bench, in my goal. You want Wallstedt to escape that game with only 1 goal against. You want everybody in the building to walk out, players, coaches, the fans to walk out feeling like you put the hammer to this team and you didn't hang on at the end. That's the only thing I can think of that he might have been thinking, because earlier in the season we've seen, once there was a separator goal scored, that's exactly what he has done. Then it's been more of the 3rd, 4th liner type guys that have been out there to wrap up a victory than what we saw last night. And I think it was maybe just I just don't want anything to take away from how thoroughly dominant this team was in this game.
Lots of different achievements last night. Jesper Wallstedt stopped 30. This is a crazy stat because it almost shows you the fact how the Wild just haven't gone far in the playoffs. Wallstedt 34, 35 shots to earn his 5th win of the playoffs. That ties Dwayne Rolison for the single postseason victories list. 5. Isn't that crazy? Quinn Hughes became the first defenseman and 5th player in Wild history to score multiple game-winning goals in a single postseason. Faber and Hughes have the most goals in a single postseason in Wild history for each. Kaprizov already 14 points, league leading, and ties Parise for the 2nd most points in a single postseason, and he's only 3 behind Marian Gabourik's record.
Well, when you think about it, this is 5 wins in this postseason. And even the run to the finals in 2003, because they got swept in the finals by Anaheim, they only won 8 games.
Yeah, good point.
And then in 2014,
And
you know,
what
remember
it was, Dwayne and Manny split time, right?
they split it, but in 15, remember they got swept by Chicago in the second round.
Mhm.
So even though they won the first round series, they got beat 4 in a row. So it was that 14 series is the only other time that they've won more than 5 games in a playoff, when they won 6 because they lost 4-2 to Chicago in that second round. So there haven't been a ton of wins in the same postseason for Minnesota before. And, you know, this series to me has a lot more feel like what that 14 series against Chicago had, after the Wild had beaten Colorado the first time around, the first time they beat him in a playoff series, and went to Chicago against what was a really good Chicago team. And same kind of thing, lost 2 in Chicago, came home and won 2. And remember, that was the stanchion that deflected right to Patrick Kane to seal the series in Game 6 in St. Paul. But this team is different, and it's felt that way from the start of this playoff. And I think we're just seeing, you know, we're just kind of scratching the surface with what these guys would be capable of, because right now you're 3 games into a second round series, and look at some of the numbers these guys have piled up. You know, we talked about their star power. I mean, Kaprizov sitting at 14 points already in the playoffs. I mean, that's unbelievable. They've got 3 of the top 4 plus minus guys in the NHL. They've got a couple of the top scorers. This is different when you head into the playoffs, where you've got the big guns that can match everybody else. It's not like those teams in 14 and 15 where they had to kind of grind you to death against the star power of the Blackhawks.
Yeah, Wild 3 players in the top 5 in scoring in the NHL, Kaprizov, Hughes, and Boldy. Hughes has been just unbelievable. Let's talk a little bit about Kirill. Obviously, you know, last night was, I thought, his best game of the playoff, and he was excellent in Game 1 against Dallas. You know, he was so good that game. But last night was as good as we've seen him. And just his battle level, like Marcus Folignos said after the game, Anthony, that you could just see it in his eyes, you know, that he came to play. And Kaprizov said after the game that it's been keeping him up, that he just feels like he could bring more. He joked, you know, you guys giving me a bad word, you know, the S word is what he was saying, you know, and then he had to show up. But last night, his battle level, and that's what makes him unique to a lot of superstars in the league. You know, obviously, Nathan McKinnon brings the battle level every single night. What he has is the speed and the thoroughbred aspect to his game. But Kaprizov is a different type of player, as you've said many times. He's got that fourth line workers mentality, and just the way he forechecked the last night, the way he doesn't avoid contact. It really was a special performance for the guy.
Yeah, and you could see it from the first shift of the game, that I thought his first shift was great. Just a speed and it's not the straight line locomotive kind of speed with which McKinnon plays, but it's more as we saw so often in those first couple seasons for Kaprizov, that ability to just circle the offensive zone without ever giving up the puck. But I think what is telling, and we saw it in Denver too, there were a couple shifts where, you know, he came out of a pile in front of the net. And I remember early in his career, he seemed like he was there more often, where he'd come out with like his helmet on sideways and the hair hanging out of the side of his helmet, just because he was a bull going to the net. And we haven't seen that quite as often really throughout this season. I think at times his game has been a little more perimeter. And, you know, and I say that as I've been the guy who've been defending his scoring and wondering why people keep looking at him saying, why is he not doing more? And this playoff's a perfect example. 14 points and plus 10 now? Plus 11, I suppose, after the late goal last night. It's unreal. Like, what more do you want from a guy? But I think and when you also throw in that he played half of this playoff without his line mate, Matt Zuccarello, almost half of the games they've played in this playoff were without him. And so I think it's, you know, last night, I think he set the tone, though, early. Just as much as Marcus Foligno and Nick Foligno said it physically, he said it with a mentality that you're going to have a hard time defending me tonight.
Yeah, you know, the two of them combined for 15 hits, the Foligno brothers. It felt to me, Anthony, that Trennan had like 30 hits in the game, but then he only got credited for 3 at the end of the game. Maybe one. I guess they don't count the one where he rocked Jake Middleton. But
Yeah, that was one of
but
the bigger hits of the night.
yeah, I know. But and he hit glass a couple times, so he made him look good. You know what I was thinking also last night, Anthony? Like the crowd. Like you remember back in the day, and this is where I think we do have to give like guys like Parisi and Suter their druthers. Just like back in the day, I remember talking to Eric Nystrom once, and he's like, "This is the quietest sold out crowd ever." Like they don't like. Do they know that they should like cheer? And but then it just feels like we've had this run of like playoff appearances. The most in the NHL, tied with Pittsburgh in the last dozen years or so. Um, and the crowd, like it's amazing. Like when you see those like, wide angle shots of the crowd after a goal, that's not
Yeah.
like a lot of buildings. It really
Well,
isn't. Like,
no, it's not, and you and I are in a lot of buildings, so,
yeah,
we know that. There are a few where it's electric like that. There are a few, but there aren't.
Montreal. Yeah.
Montreal's one of them. Vegas is like that, but that's because it's like going to a nightclub, and, there are some buildings that are like that, but not everywhere,
Yeah.
and
Is that
that's what I
Phil
was
or
saying
Stanley?
early. Probably Stanley, although they're both on the move right now because 'cause they're hungry.
Okay.
But it is different, and that's what I was saying early, is that there are some times where you felt like in big games like this that the Wild fans almost had to be convinced to be energetic in games, where they had to be convinced there was a chance, and last night was not that. They came and were roaring from the start, and, yeah, I think we talk about the star power being different now. Well, Parise and Suter changed it a little bit. These guys have taken it to the next level, where Parise and Suter were star players. But, these guys we're talking about guys that are the best of the best, like the
Yeah.
superstar kind of
Yeah.
players. And Parise and Suter were the type that came in that they still had to outwork you, outsmart you, out hustle you, out effort you to beat you. These guys can outskill you. And I think there's a difference, but
Yeah,
I
no,
think
I'm
I
I'm
think
more
you're right
talking
that
about
those
just
guys, yeah,
I'm
the
just more
fans and
talking about
the
turning the
yeah,
organization around.
absolutely. They
Yeah.
put the organization on the map and made it legit.
Mhm.
And they were the ones who started this 12 playoff runs in 14 years. They're the
Exactly.
ones who started that.
Yeah.
And now these guys have carried it over.
And the one thing is like, when you're a Wild fan, obviously, like we talk about the sustained success in the playoffs a lot. But the one thing about being a Wild fan is every single regular season is exciting. They
Right.
never have to deal, even though maybe they want a top pick every now and then, they never have to deal with just the regular seasons, meaning absolutely jack
Right. No,
squat
I
for
know.
half a season.
That
And
well, that
and I
and
think that
and,
brings out this.
yeah, that and multiple years of that where, I mean, I was watching the Anaheim-Vegas game the other night, and I think Anaheim they're gonna be a contending team for the foreseeable future. They've got a really good young core. San Jose is headed in the right direction. But we're talking about teams that took 6, 7, 8 years of playing nothing but
Mhm.
meaningless games from December to the end of the year. And as I sat in the building last night and the crowd roaring and literally just feeling like a tingle in my spine and thinking, this is what it's like to be in a market where you're playing competitive hockey year
Mhm.
after year after year. And would you trade this for 6 years of no playoff games? I personally wouldn't. I think it's been amazing this run to be playing games. I think about the first year that John Hines came and took over halfway through for Dean Evison. And remember when they were knocked out, I don't remember how many games where realistically they weren't gonna make it, and it was maybe the last 5, 6 games of the year where you knew it was almost mathematically impossible for them to get in, and I remember thinking how empty even those 5 or 6 games felt, and I thought, imagine if you were calling 40 of those every single year at the end of the year, where it just hasn't been that way, and when you feel and you see that excitement in St. Paul, it's something special to be a part of an organization that's in that every single year, and right now, with the way this roster is built, you'd be a fool to think that you're not gonna see it for the next 3 or 4 years at least. Hi, this is Anthony LaPanta. I recently made my first visit ever to a stretch lab. I stopped at the location out in Maple Grove and had a great stretch practitioner named Tom who was terrific. I can't wait to get back. As you try to fight the aging process, which I'm right there with you, trying to battle it, flexibility is one of the big keys. I felt great after my first stretch, and I'm planning to go back weekly. There are 10 locations all across the Twin Cities. I highly recommend checking out Stretch Lab.
You've heard me for years talk about my Connecticut water treatment system in my house. Well, many homeowners don't realize how much hard or poor quality water affects your daily life. Issues include cloudy water, bad taste, buildup on fixtures, dry skin, appliance wear, everything. Well, I have your solution, and it's Aquarius Home Services. They are your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Connecticut systems provide worry-free water throughout your entire home. Systems right now start at $9.95 per month for the first 3 months. It's $9.95 per month for the first 3 months. Their technicians will come to your home and provide a free in-home water quality testing analysis. Aquarius handles everything from your testing to your installation. One call and your problem is solved. You can enjoy spotless dishes, softer clothes, smoother, softer skin and hair, worry-free drinking water right from your faucet. That means no more plastic water bottles, no more water cans, everything. You'll be surprised also how little salt it uses. Visit right now or book your services at AquariusHomeservices.com. That's AquariusHomeservices.com, earning the right to be recommended. That's Aquarius Home Services. And don't forget to tell them that Russo sent you.
Life comes with a lot of things to remember, and Great Clips doesn't think your haircut should be one of them. That's why they use clip notes to save your haircut details, so no matter which stylist you see or Great Clips salon you visit, it's easy to feel like the best version of you. So do yourself a favor. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to a great haircut every time. Download the app today. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and we'll see if they can keep it going in Game 4. I will say this, not to compare markets, but Carolina is another one where you just go to every one of those games and it's a party in that building. And they've another team that has had sustained success and 8 straight victories in the playoffs, 2 sweeps. They certainly look like they have the ability to really take advantage of a postseason without Florida, now Tampa, without Toronto.
How about take advantage of a ridiculous postseason schedule? And we talked about it as soon as it came out when they announced that they were going to start that series on the Saturday because all of the first round series that were supposed to play Game 7 on that Saturday were over. And we talked about it that day on our pod, I believe, where I said, look, there's a real good chance that series is only 4 games long, even if it's 5 at the outside. And they're going to end up with more than a week before the other series is over. And here we are. Their series is done. Buffalo and Montreal are 1-1. They could have 5 more games. So, the days of rest is one thing, but think about 5 more games of wear and tear in what looks like it's going to be a highly competitive series between Buffalo and Montreal. So they have a series left while Carolina sits on the side and waits for them.
Yeah. May 18th, if Montreal and Buffalo goes 7 games, May 18th. So is the final game. So you're talking about starting earliest May 20th. So you're talking about 11 days off.
And think about, you're bringing up the point about the Wild star players being on the ice for the final minute of a game where you're risking injury. How about playing 5 more games with risk of injury for 60 minutes in 5 games while this other team just sits around and waits for you? This is one of the reasons. I know it's all driven by TV, and there are some people on this pod right now who make their living based on TV viewership. So it's hard to really say too many things that take away from that. But there is a point where you have to say as a league, look, I get it. You guys right now are sitting around, and I get it. You had a Saturday national window that you want to put a game, but we have to keep the competitive integrity of this league intact and say there just aren't any games on Saturdays. This series can't start until Tuesday or Wednesday. I feel like it should have started maybe one day before the other series, but not 5 days before the other series.
To your point, the only reason why the Wild did have 3 days off was because of TV. They would have moved the Frost game. The Frost game is subject to change. They did move them Thursday, Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday, or I can't remember. But but that was not what it was a total TV thing. It's the reason why the Wild had to hop right to Denver without, really any days off. So yeah, TV rules the world. Lastly, before we wrap up the show, Anthony, Eriksson Ek, he tried to skate a couple days ago. He left the ice. He looked like Frankenstein leaving the ice, man. This poor guy. Like, I know that people it really bothers me when fans sit at home and they call players soft and things like that. Like, I'm watching this guy. I know what his injury is. He should not be on the ice at all. The fact that he's even trying to play is ridiculous, and he's probably gonna try to play at some point. But, like he's gotta be effective for him to play. They can't have a situation like they did in 2023 where all of a sudden they're playing 59 minutes and 40 seconds without him. And,
Yeah.
if he's not ready, he's not ready, but hopefully the Wild can extend this series and maybe even this postseason and get him back. I mean, there's a chance. Like, I saw him in the press box last night, and he looks miserable that he can't be out there.
Well, no doubt, and I haven't heard a ton of people. Seen a couple comments about people saying, but anybody who says that, frankly, about anybody in the National Hockey League they're an idiot. I mean, we see with these guys, the grind they put themselves through every single night, every single shift, the physical nature of this game, the speed, the violent hits that take place, and, you see it every night when guys are walking out of the room. It's amazing when I get on that team plane each night to fly to the next city, and the number of guys that are having ice packs delivered to their seats so that they can ice down wherever they got hit with a puck that night or got run into the wall that night or whatever it might be. Anybody that thinks these guys aren't doing anything and everything to get back on the ice is ridiculous. And when you hear every season, and we kind of make light of it sometimes, that as soon as a team gets knocked out and they reveal what the actual injuries were, instead of just saying lower body day to day, and now they'll come out and say, well, yeah, this guy was playing with a broken ankle, or this guy was playing with an MCL sprain, or a AC joint knocked out of whack in his shoulder, whatever it might be. There just aren't people in everyday life or even other pro sports that play through what guys in the National Hockey League play through. It's unbelievable, and the Wild miss him. They miss him dearly, but it's killing these guys to not be on the ice right now.
Yeah.
We can assure you that.
Yeah, and look, and when I say that, I'm not getting I get fans, they have every right to be frustrated that it's, Ek and Brodin again. I mean, trust me, inside the organization, they feel that way as well. But the reality is they're hurt. They don't want to be hurt. Brodin cannot play right now. He's not physically able for a while. Hopefully they go far and he can return. But Eriksson Ek, trust me, he wants to be out there. I have not talked to him, but I guarantee you he's as frustrated as the fans are of the way he got hurt. It's just amazing. It wasn't even a hit. It's just him slipping, it's just crazy.
No
All right,
doubt.
awesome.
Hey, before we go, though,
Yep.
we have to wish Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers
Yes.
out there who
I was just
listen
going to
to
ask you,
this show.
what do you got planned for Margot today?
Yeah, we've got a
Golf.
full day
That's
planned.
what you have planned for Margot, right? You golfing?
No. There's no golf on Mother's Day. You know better than that. It's
I don't
I've
buy
got a
it.
couple household
Is Margot
projects. Yeah, she is there.
Yeah, put her on.
Yeah, Margot, they don't believe me that you forbid golf on Mother's Day. Yeah, she slammed her fist into her palm saying, "I'd be squished like a bug."
Yeah.
It's, no, I think she's got a brunch with the girls planned, and I've got some projects around the house I have to get done. I gotta get some yard work done, the lawn mowed, and then I'm hosting dinner for Mother's Day, so
Nice.
we'll have a good Sunday dinner here with only the girls are in town. The boys didn't make it back for Mother's Day. Can you believe the disrespect they show for their mom that way?
I know. So, and tell everybody what's going on a week from tomorrow.
Yeah, we've head across the pond to Greece for AJ's wedding on the island of Corfu, and we're really looking forward to it. So, well, that's why we give the boys a pass. They know they're going to see their mom in a week, and I joke about it, but we'll give them a pass for that. We're heading to Corfu for AJ's wedding. We'll spend a few days there before the wedding, and the wedding is the following Sunday. And then the other 8 of us, so the other 3 kids and their significant others, are going to head into Puglia and spend an extra week on the trip over there, exploring kind of the south part of Italy that we've never visited on all of our Europe trips. We've been to the Tuscany, we've been through southern Italy, we've been to Sicily, but we haven't been over on the heel of the boot side, so to speak. And we're going to visit Matera, Lecce, and Polignano Mare, which I'm really excited about. So it's going to be a great trip. And unfortunately, I hope that we're dealing with trying to do podcasts during a round 3 series for the Wild while we're touring southern Italy.
Or we just get a guest host and you might get Wally pipped.
I can't take that chance.
Yeah. Gorgie, the new co-host of the 4
Yeah, well,
seasons.
the problem is you'd ask him one question, he'd talk, and 20 minutes later, you'd come back with a new coffee, and he'd still be going.
Yeah. Speaking of which, this is empty, so I got to go get a new one before I write my Kirill Kaprizov story. All right, thanks to our incredible sponsors. We'll be doing this again after Game 4 on Tuesday morning. Thanks to our incredible sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems, Onyx Hunt, Great Clips, Stretch Labs, and Lucy Nicotine Pouches. Talk to you on Tuesday morning, Anthony.
Happy Mother's Day.
So much coming out, there's